Hello students, welcome to Banik Smart. So in the series of discussion regarding international conventions, so today we are going to discuss about the Chemical Weapon Convention. The Chemical Weapon Convention, it is a post war development because there is allegation that countries have been developing chemical weapons. Normally, you all know that there are weapons which are broadly categorized as WMD, weapons of mass destruction. Weapons of mass destruction. Okay, WMD. So it includes nuclear weapons. It includes chemical weapons. It includes biological weapons. Fine. Because use of these weapons kill people in large or en masse. So kill en masse. That means so large number massive destruction. That's why they are called as weapons of mass destruction. Second World War came to an end with the use of nuclear weapons. Now America took the credibility of ending the war because it has used the nuclear weapons, and the Second World War came to an end. So in the race of armaments, nations started developing nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, and biological weapons. And as this competition increased among countries regarding the development of these weapons, so more and more countries join the race for the development of these weapons. So ultimately resulting in a huge stockpiling of these weapons in many countries of the world, which are very harmful to human existence. That led the international community to think of drafting some international conventions to control the development, production, stockpiling, and use of such weapons. Fine, but these conventions what? It show convention on what all these conventions, nuclear open convention, chemical open convention, biological open convention. So the intention is so prohibition of the development, production, stockpiling, and use of chemical weapons and their destruction. Fine. So in this light, as chemical weapon is considered as a weapon of mass destruction. So there is a convention drafted by the international community on the weapons of the chemical weapon convention. So popularly known as chemical weapon convention, but this is regarding that prohibition of development, production, stockpiling, and use of chemical weapons, internationally known as. ଆପଣଙ୍କର ଅଛନ୍ତି ପରା କି ଏକ୍ସଚେଞ୍ଜ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଆପଣ କ୍ୟାପିଟାଲ ସ୍କୁଲ ନେଇକି ଯାଆନ୍ତୁ ରି ଆପଣ କ୍ୟାପିଟାଲ ସ୍କୁଲ ଆଣିବେ ତ କୋଉଠୁ ଆଣିବେ ହଁ ଆପଣ କ୍ୟାପିଟାଲ ସ୍କୁଲରେ ପହଞ୍ଚନ୍ତୁ ହେଲା ସେଇଠି ବ୍ଲଡ ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କରେ ଆପଣ ସେଇଠି ପହଞ୍ଚିକି ସେଠି ଅନିଲ ବାବୁ ବୋଲି ଅଛନ୍ତି ହେଲା କିଛି ଦରକାର ନାହିଁ ଆପଣ ବ୍ଲଡ ଦେଲେ ଆଉ ଏକ୍ସଚେଞ୍ଜ ଆଣିବେ ସେଠି ପହଞ୍ଚିକି ମୋତେ କଲ୍ କରନ୍ତୁ କଣ୍ଟାକ୍ଟ କରିବେ So this organization So which is the organization which has been given responsibility? Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Okay, so under the auspices of this organization known as the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, so global community decided to draft a convention which will regulate the use of this harmful, destructive weapon, which is known as chemical weapon. Clear? So this is the popular chemical weapon convention, popularly known as chemical weapon convention, but in actuality, this is known as prohibition of the development, production, stockpiling, and use of chemical weapons and the destruction. So who is the agency? Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. This is the agency which is an intergovernmental organization which is headquartered Hague in Netherlands, which enforce this chemical weapon convention. Okay, so is it clear? This weapon convention is to check the prohibition, development, production, stockpiling of the and use of chemical weapons, because this is considered as a weapon of mass destruction. Okay, so this treaty or the Treaty on Nuclear that Chemical Weapon Convention came into force on 29th April 1997. Fine. So after a long year, because there are countries like Iraq which has nuclear chemical weapon development program. There are so many other countries, including presently you can say Syria. It is use of in North Korea and many other countries. They have developed chemical weapons. And in the during the regime of Saddam Hussein in Iraq, so this program was very profound, and there is a person who is popularly known as the chemical lolly. So he was so popular and so have mastery over chemical weapon. So his popular name was chemical lolly. So he was the man who was, so he is called the chemical lolly. So during Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Fine. So this is the background, and under this background in 1997, so this treaty was drafted and came into force and prohibits the large scale use, development, production, stockpiling, and transfer of chemical weapons under precursors, except for very limited purpose like medical research, pharmaceutical, and protective. So this chemical also used for other purposes. They have different research use, medical use, pharmaceutical use, or protective use, but for this it is allowed, but for its destructive use, this is strictly prohibited. Fine. So then let's see what are the main obligations. The main obligations of the member state under this convention is to effect this prohibition as well as destruction of all current chemical weapons. So what they will do? So they will prohibit the development of chemical weapons as well as destruction of all current chemical weapons. The chemical weapons they have at present with them. So in course of time, they will have a program for destruction of these chemical weapons. All destruction activity must take place under the OPCW verification. But this OPCW, as I discussed it here, Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, or OPCW, which acts as the watchdog of chemical weapons. Fine. So all destructions activity must take place under the OPCW verification. As of 2021, 193 states have become parties to CWC and accepted obligations. You know, United Nations has a membership 193. Total membership at United Nations is 193. And except barring few, also, and including some other country, 193 members have also signed the Chemical Weapon Convention. That means they have become party to this Chemical Weapon Convention. Okay, and accept the obligations under the Chemical Weapon Convention. They have accepted the obligations. This is the obligations under Chemical Weapon Convention, and we must accept it. Israel has signed but not ratified the agreement, while three other UN members such as Egypt, North Korea, and South Sudan have neither signed nor accepted to the treaty. Most recently, the state of Palestine deposited its instrument of accession of the CWC, and because although Palestine has not been made a full-fledged member of the United Nations, still it has deposited the instrument of accession on to the CWC, means Chemical Weapon Convention, to the OPCW. In September 2013, Syria acceded to the convention as part of an agreement for destruction of the Syrian chemical weapons. As you know, after Iraq, if any country is in news regarding chemical weapons, it is Syria. Okay, after its massive use in Iraq by its own ruler Saddam Hussein, so another ruler, okay, in Syria, he also used this chemical weapon on his own people, on the rebels who were uh, uh, revolting against his rule, despotic rule of the president Assad. So there is allegation that the president has and his forces loyal to him has used this weapon against the rebels and thereby killing them in large number. Fine. So, the convention has provisions for systematic evaluation of the chemical production facilities. So, facilities as well as for investigation of all allegations of use and production of chemical weapons based on intelligence of other state parties. So, how they will know? So, this it has its own mechanism as well as it also verify the intelligence report submitted by other state parties who are the members of the chemical weapon convention. Fine. So this is how this mechanism has been made stronger, by which so people that the OPCW take action against the countries who are violating the chemical weapon conventions and putting this as a big threat to the humanity. Fine. Some chemicals which have been used extensively in warfare but have numerous large-scale industrial use, such as phosgene, are highly regulated. However, certain notable exemptions exist. Chlorine gas is highly toxic, but being used as a pure element and extremely widely used for peaceful purposes is not officially listed as a chemical weapon. But this is a chemical which have a fatal potentiality. It can kill, but because this is used as a purifier, water purifier, so this cannot be banned under the Chemical Weapon Convention. Certain state powers, uh, Assad regime in Syria, continue to regularly manufacture and implement such chemicals in combat munitions, means ammunitions. Although these chemicals are not specifically listed as controlled by Chemical Weapon Convention, the use of any toxic chemical as a weapon is in and of itself forbidden by the treaty. So, use of any toxic chemicals, any use of any toxic chemical as weapon. Remember this. Any chemical that can use as weapon is branded under the Chemical Weapon Convention. It is branded because so this chemical has other use, but this toxic chemical can use as a weapon. And when it is used as a weapon, so this law come into force. Fine. Other chemicals such as white phosphorus are highly toxic but are legal under the CWC when they are used by military forces for reason on their toxicity. So there are some chemicals which have other uses, and when they are used for other purposes, so they cannot be banned. So let us look at the history about this chemical weapon convention. The CWC arguments, okay, the Geneva Protocol of 1925, which bans the use but not the development or possession of chemical and biological weapons. So here is a Geneva Protocol of 1925. But this protocol, Geneva Protocol, and the year is 1925, which ban the use but not the development or possession of chemical and biological weapons. So what it bans the use. So under Geneva Protocol of 1925, use of this is banned, but their development and possession is not prohibited. The CWC also includes extensive verification measures such as on-site inspection, in stark contrast to the 1975 Biological Weapon Convention, which lacks a verification regime. So this uh, Chemical Weapon Convention so has a very rigid verification mechanism which was lacking in the previous Geneva Protocol of 1925. After several changes of names and composition, the mechanism of negotiation evolved into the Conference on Disarmament in 1984. And in 1992, the Conference on Disarmament submitted to the United Nations General Assembly its annual report which contained the text of chemical weapon convention. So after long deliberation, so it started from 1984 in the conference of disarmament, and in 1992, after a gap of nearly around 8 years, the report was presented before the United Nations General Assembly, which contained the text of the Chemical Weapon Convention. The Chemical Weapon Convention draft was presented before the international community in the United Nations in 1992. The General Assembly approved the convention in the same year, in November 1992, and the Secretary General then opened the convention for signature in Paris in 1993. The CWC remained open for signature until its entry into force in 1997, 180 days after the deposit at the UN by Hungary of the 64th instrument of ratification. After 65 countries ratified the instrument of the CWC or Chemical Weapon Convention, it became operational by 1997 at the international level. Fine. So after a long period of efforts by some people who are really concerned about the devastating effects of chemical weapons, this chemical weapon convention was drafted and it came into force in 1997. So in 1997, the global community was presented with the present version of the chemical weapon convention, which is a guarantee to ensure that the world is free from chemical weapons. That's what. Fine. So let's see what this organization OPCW is. The Chemical Weapon Convention, so it mandates the OPCW as the enforcement agency, as the verification mechanism, as the institutional arrangement for this OPCW. The convention is administered by the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which acts as a legal platform for specification of the CWC provisions. The conference of the states parties, the conference of the state parties is mandated to change the CWC and pass regulations on implementation of the CWC requirements. The technical secretariat of the organization conducts inspection to ensure compliance of the compliance of the member states. These inspections target destruction facility where permanent monitoring takes place during destruction. The chemical weapon production facility which have been dismantled or converted for civil use, as well as inspections of the chemical industry. The Secretariat may furthermore conduct investigations of alleged use of chemical weapons and give assistance after use of chemical weapons. In 2013, Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to the organization because it has, with the Chemical Weapon Convention, have played commendable role in the post-chemical weapon attack in Syria. So this OPCW, it was given the Nobel Peace Prize in recognition of its commendable role, especially in Syria. This is a big credit to the chemical weapon watchdog named as OPCW, this organization for prohibition of chemical weapons. So, what the convention, the features? So, it prohibits the production and use of chemical weapons. Number one, prohibit the production and use both. Neither the weapon should be produced nor they should be used by any country. Destruction of chemical weapons production facilities. The chemical weapon production facility are to be destroyed. This will be destroyed. Destruction of all chemical weapons which are in stockpiling. The reserve of the chemical weapons with the country must be, they should be dismantled or destroyed. Okay, assistance between state parties and the OPCW in case of use of chemical weapons. Okay, if any country use chemical weapons, other nations should come to the rescue of the country. Okay, to help the country to overcome the situation under the expertise of the OPCW, because OPCW has expertise in this domain. So under OPCW expertise, so other countries who are party to this convention will support and work in the country which have been attacked by the chemical weapons. Fine. An OPCW inspection regime for the production of chemicals which might be converted to chemical weapons. Fine. So so inspection regime for production and chemical which might be converted to chemical weapons. International cooperation in the peaceful use of chemistry in relevant areas. So chemical weapon convention does not prohibit that there should no development of chemical industry in the world, because there is a big chemical industry so in the world with other uses, but that is known as the chemical industry. It has its industrial use, it has its medical use, it has its other civilian use. Fine. So there is research on this. There is a Nobel Prize in chemistry. In chemistry. Okay, so it is a very useful science. So chemicals are developed. There is research that continues in this domain. So that does not imply that all chemicals can be used to as weapons. But if any chemical is used as weapon, then that to be prohibited by the activity of the OPCW and under the guideline of the Chemical Weapon Convention. Okay, but its civilian use is permitted. So what it implies? Civilian use of chemicals is permitted. Not only this. So not only civilian use, but research, cooperation, sharing of ideas for civilian use is encouraged. This is encouraged. Fine. So friends, so this is about the Chemical Weapon Convention. So which is an international treaty convention. So which the with the intention to check the use of chemical weapons, their production, their stockpiling, etc. So this will be very useful for your examination because this is a very relevant international conventions. Questions quite often comes on this. So enrich yourself on this particular topic to perform good in the examination. Fine. So then we'll go to So this is the Australian group. It is a multilateral export control regime and an informal group of countries established in 1985 to help member countries identify those exports which need to be controlled so as not to contribute to the spread of chemical and biological weapons. So this is very well related to the Chemical Weapon Convention. Fine. This is very well related to the Chemical Weapon Convention because this Australian group. So it intend to control the spread of chemical and biological weapons. What it intends? It intends to control the spread of chemical and biological weapons. Right. The names come from Australian initiative to create the group because Australia was the country which has taken the initiative. That's why it is known as the Australian group. And Australia also manages secretariat. The group consists of 15 members. Held its first meeting in Brussels in Belgium in 1985. With the incorporation of India in January 2008, it has now 43 countries. So there are 43 nations who are member of this Australian group. Okay, and India has joined as a member of this Australian group. It includes Australia, New Zealand, European Commission, all 27 states of European Union, United Kingdom, United States, Canada, Italy, Ukraine, Argentina, all are members to the Australian group. The initial member of the group has different assessment of their chemical prosecutions should be subject to export control. Latter adherents initially had to such control. Presently, member of the group maintain export control on a uniform list of 87 compounds, including several that are not prohibited for export under the Chemical Weapon Conventions. That means, so this Australian group, so it prohibits the export of some chemicals which can be used as weapons. Okay, but can be used for manufacturing chemical weapons. It can be used, it has its own civilian use, but also can be used for manufacturing chemical weapons. Additionally, the Australian group expands its standardization of listening and export control to cover technology related to the manufacturing of chemical weapons or controlled components. Fine. In 2002, the group took two important steps to strengthen export control. The first was no undercut requirement, which stated that any member of the group considering making an export to another state that had already been denied an export by any other member of the group must first consult with that member state before approving the export. Fine. It was the first criteria, no undercut requirement. We stated that any member of the group considering making an export to another state that had already been denied an export by any other member of the group must first consult with that member state before approving the export. If one country has denied exporting its to another country and that country approach another member country, so the country will definitely consider the first country which has denied the export on the ground which it has been denied. Justifiably grounds must be known why it has been denied if it is. Otherwise, this will be a violation of the principle. The second was catch-all provisions which require member state to halt all export that could be used by importers in chemical or biological weapon programs, regardless of whether the export is on the group's control or not. This is catch-all. That means so because this can be used destructively, so this should not be at all given the scope for use. Catch-all. Fine. Delegations representing the members meet every year in Paris, France. Fine, and they discuss about so this to which country this that these chemical metals are to be exported and to which country should be restricted because they should be restricted to be used if the country's intention is not clear regarding how this is going to be used. Fine. So, friends, these two developments today have exposed you to the two different issues of chemical weapons. One is the chemical weapon convention, second is the Australian group. So, hope your knowledge has been expanded on these domains and will be helpful to you in writing this in case this comes as a question in your examination. Thank you for watching. Thank you.